Are people coming in to pawn more of their things? Have you seen any change since the Trump tariffs liberation day was announced?
Um, Not really. I mean, I have seen a little slowdown in retail, but that's definitely going to happen when,
Rick Harrison, the main character in the hit reality TV show Pawn Stars, appeared on television as a tough but funny middle-aged man who cared deeply about his family and was well-versed in antiques. He was regarded as a prime example of the American success story. However, everything fell apart in one evening. A video that was less than a minute long and leaked from a secret room in Rick Harrison's estate sparked public outrage. Rick appeared in the video, standing in front of a glass case with a meticulously groomed and made-up corpse, as if ready for a red carpet event. His demeanor was not one of panic or anxiety. It was even loving and calm. The footage was horrifying in its cold simplicity, with no screams or violent behavior, and that alone was enough to completely change the public perception of him. However, this was more than just a scandal. It was the horrific revelation of a terrible crime, from a mysterious storage facility to a nationwide shockwave. The case began not in an FBI office or a courtroom. It all started in an abandoned storage facility on the outskirts of Las Vegas, where most residents didn't notice. It was there that Darren Lockhart, a little-known YouTuber who specializes in storage unit unboxings and reselling abandoned goods, unintentionally triggered a nightmare that no one, including himself, could have predicted. On what appeared to be any other morning, Darren attended an auction at Storage Masters, a location he had previously visited. Unit 17 was not particularly noteworthy. Rick Harrison's pawn shop sells a few large wooden crates and boxes stamped with the recognizable gold and silver pawn logo for $130. Darren expected little, perhaps a few trinkets for resale, but the strong, overpowering scent of chemicals, decay, and something Darren couldn't quite identify hit him the moment the metal door opened. 3 large wooden containers stood behind the unit. Every crate was old, dusty, and tightly sealed, with the words RH Property spray-painted in black letters. Smaller boxes containing cameras, vintage radios, and framed photographs, all apparently from a 1960s exhibit, were next to them. Ever fascinated, Darren began filming as usual and pawed open the first crate. Darren staggered back as the lid creased open. What he found inside defied his expectations of a mannequin or antique model. It was a body. She was well cared for, dressed in a vintage evening gown with lace gloves. Her face was expertly made up, and her hair was tightly curled in the classic style. Her skin was pale but youthful, her eyes closed, and her lips pressed softly together. For the first few seconds, Darren's mind works to process what he's seeing. He didn't start throwing until he was overcome by the pungent smell of chemicals and rotting flesh, at which point he dialed 911. Local cops arrived first, but within hours, the situation had escalated to federal authorities. When the other 2 crates were opened, 2 more bodies emerged, each decorated with props and accessories as if for a performance. As if in a macabre art installation, one Betty carried a bouquet, the other a handkerchief and handbag, both with tags attached. One tag read, Pageant Queen, 1982, and the other said, Golden Era, MG. The connections were clear. MHG. Melanie Granger, a host and singer who went missing in 2009 while on tour in Las Vegas, had the same initials. Pageant Queen 1982 was linked to former Miss California Patricia Kellerman, who went missing after attending a charity event in Los Angeles. Long forgotten in cold case files, these 2 names have reappeared as frozen, eerily preserved bodies meticulously prepared, almost as if for a silent, haunting exhibition. Detectives discovered a leather-bound journal buried beneath the containers, which complicated the investigation. The cover simply says, Private Acquisitions. More than 20 names were listed inside, along with notes, pictures, height identifying marks, acquisition dates, and preservation status. Many of these names appear in missing person cases dating back decades. Rick's name appeared several times in the margins, even as R. Harris confirmed. Authorities quickly connected the dots. Rick's handwriting, the pawn shop logo, and regular payments from a bank account linked to gold and silver pawn, the same account used to rent the storage unit for years, all pointed directly at Rick Harrison. The news tested the public's processing abilities. Rick Harrison, the man they watched every night on Pawn Stars, was a pop history expert who was now linked to 3 preserved bodies that looked like wax dolls. In 12 hours, the story spread across the United States. Google searches for terms such as Rick Harrison criminal, Pawn Stars murder, and Hollywood mortuary dominated trending topics. The FBI released an official statement. They were looking at a structured network dedicated to the exhibition and preservation of human bodies. Despite the fact that no suspects were publicly identified, the press, social media, and supporters were all aware of where the focus was. Rick Harrison stood in the midst of a storm. The immediate consequences were clear. Every Pawn Stars episode that the History Channel pulled from its internet channels was also available on other platforms. Sponsorship deals expired in 24 hours. Rick Harrison went from a popular television personality to a dangerous suspect overnight. However, the most terrifying aspect of the case had nothing to do with body count or identification. Their treatment, preservation, care, and arrangement were as if they were for a gruesome art exhibition. And then came the breaking point. A leaked video surfaced a few days after the discovery. A quick video of Rick in front of one of the preserved bodies. He said little in the video, simply grinning as he changed the wig on the deceased. There was no bloodshed or obvious violence. Nonetheless, the scene was eerie due to its silence. Rick is appreciating a work of art. That video, more than any legal pronouncement, ruined Rick's public image. It was the first blow in a case that would not only change one man's life, but also shake a nation's faith in the people they saw on television. Despite the fact that the narrative was still in its early stages, it was obvious. There were no typical scandals here. It was the kind of dream that transformed glory into shame and confidence into uncertainty in a single glance. 3 days after a leaked video from Rick Harrison's house went viral on social media, the FBI conducted a major search of his mansion. This was not a typical house. Rick lived in a large 800-square-meter estate that was completely isolated from the outside world, surrounded by dense vegetation and high walls. Rick had boldly displayed his house as a symbol of the American dream, a house he had built from nothing during previous television appearances. Nobody knew what lay behind those reinforced walls, a secret that would shake the entire country. The Federal Special Crimes Unit directed the raid, which began at 5:17 a.m. A team of 14 agents carried out the operation under an emergency search warrant issued just hours before, in collaboration with forensic experts and digital specialists. Rick was apprehended in the main hall 9 minutes later, startled and barely dressed. He appears to have only stammered one question, which he repeated several times: "What is going on?" As if the whirlwind of events outside had no impact on him. However, the emphasis was on what Rick had buried inside, not on him. The estate was divided into several sections, including a luxurious living room, a vintage-style library, and a spacious garage. Nonetheless, it was all a facade. The raid's real target was a secret door concealed behind a library bookcase. According to investigative reports, this door was added on purpose to conceal something because it was not originally planned for the house. Behind the bookshelves was a dark, narrow corridor that was cooler than the rest of the house. There was a flickering light bulb above, and the air had a faint chemical odor. The end of the hall was marked by a steel door with an electronic keypad and a biometric lock. When the door opened, some agents came to a complete stop. Later, one of them explained, "I'd seen murder scenes before, but this was like a mortuary designed by an art-obsessed lunatic. It wasn't a storage room or a standard refrigeration unit. It was a place that was painstakingly designed to resemble a museum of death. Industrial freezers lined the 4 walls, with each drawer labeled with a name, date, and notes, including S. Grant, eager for an exhibition, or Redhead with incomplete preparation. While some bodies were on display in glass cases, dressed in formal gowns, high heels, makeup, and sunglasses, others remained inside the freezer. Though the scene was terrifyingly real, it reminded me of a science fiction film. 3 large glass cases, each containing a completely preserved body presented as a fashion model, one seated with legs crossed, clutching a handbag, and another standing at an angle, gazing to the side, dressed in a shimmering cocktail dress, in the center of the room. Later, one of these bodies was identified as Stephanie Grant, a former model who went missing in 2021 following a red carpet event. Her outfit was identical to the one she was last seen in. Security cameras, data-loaded computer drives, and countless handwritten notes surrounded the bodies. Some read, "Hair perfect, needs more blush, scent, light vanilla selected, or eyes installed," and then Review 517. A workstation containing syringes, scalpels, makeup brushes, cotton swabs, and embalming chemicals sat in the corner of the room. There was a lengthy list with nearly 30 names, preservation statuses, and personal comments such as, "Beautiful smile, doesn't fit white lighting, and deserves to be the centerpiece." The staging, rather than the preservation, bothered forensic psychologists. Everybody was treated as a work of art, meticulously arranged with intention. The glass cases had changeable LED lights, and the body angles were designed to allow viewers to fully enjoy them. Every element pointed to there being no dead body storage space. It was a meticulously curated collection, similar to an exhibit in a museum. The most frightening discovery was a laptop nearby with a Hollywood collection folder. There were hundreds of photos, videos, and detailed body descriptions. The folder had sections for personal impressions, preparation phases, and preservation status. Most shockingly, there was a subfolder called Final Placement, which detailed the intended display locations for each body. One DVD in the folder matched the leaked content. Rick grinned as he silently adjusted the hair of a corpse in front of a glass display. There was no inadvertent recording. It was a ritual. That night, forensic teams seized 2 Polaroid photo albums documenting the victim's changes, 6 dismembered body parts, 17 fully preserved bodies, and 3 hard drives containing video data. They also discovered the workshop, a secondary room that contained ancient mummification guides, embalming chemicals, human body molds, and even maps of other Nevada and Arizona storage sites. The scope of the research expanded significantly after this point. Rick Harrison was not just collecting dead bodies. He maintained his position as curator. He collected, preserved, and even rebuilt the dead as if they were historical artifacts. Unlike historical preservation, this was accomplished without permission. Experts began to classify Rick as one of a small group of criminals known as human preservationists, who are motivated by a desire to permanently possess the image of others rather than a traditional sense of pleasure in killing. Dr. Lena Marovich, a Quantico criminal psychologist, stated that Rick's actions were not impulsive. He behaved like a collector, blinded by the belief that beauty must be preserved even after death. When word of the raid leaked, America, and eventually the rest of the world, was taken by surprise. Special news bulletins depicted helicopters circling Rick's estate, specialized trucks transporting sealed containers away from the scene, and long lines of white-suited forensic teams. The leaked video that started it all became the defining symbol of a nightmare reality. The man who had entered people's living rooms every evening via television screens had been standing in a cold room, speaking to the dead. The question shifted from whether Rick committed a crime to how long he's been doing it. More shockingly, are there others out there who are shattering the media illusion and caught up in the whirlwind of human preservation? Actually, Rick Harrison was the most charming gruff man on television for over a decade. Bald-headed, direct, dealing in second-hand goods, passionate about history, and running a porn shop in the heart of Las Vegas, he personified the classic American archetype. Porn Stars, the show he co-founded and oversaw, was not your typical explosive, loud reality TV show. It felt more like an intimate conversation among antique collectors, with people bringing in odd objects and telling stories about them, and Rick, like a blue-collar historian, appreciating, explaining, and bargaining with honesty and humor. With this simple formula, Rick achieved unexpected success. At its peak, the show drew over 5 million viewers per episode, aired in over 150 countries, and turned the gold and silver pawn shop into a tourist attraction. Rick has appeared on late-night talk shows, given interviews on CNN about the gold market, spoken at colleges about the art of negotiation, and even written an autobiography, Licensed to Porn, which became a New York Times bestseller. What was the public's impression of Rick? After overcoming epilepsy, he dropped out of college, started from nothing, and built a television empire. He portrayed himself as a strict but fair father, a straightforward but amusing businessman, and a history and culture buff who could recognize a Civil War badge with a single glance. Above all, he seemed real. Rick Harrison exited the screen like a trustworthy neighbor, not polished, arrogant, or playing a role. However, the events in his home brutally ripped away that mask. When the FBI published the list of evidence they had gathered, which included bodies, preservation refrigerators, notebooks, and the leaked video, the image of the man of the people crumbled. Not only were the alleged acts brutal, but the public couldn't comprehend them. How could someone like him live a double life for decades without anyone knowing? This contains the key to the response. Rick Harrison was not someone who remained in the background. Every day he faced the public, generating a large amount of footage shot from all angles. But right there was the blind spot. Rick handled his image with amazing grace. On the show, he demonstrated a sober and respectful attitude towards the past. Regarding objects associated with war or death, he spoke of respect, honoring history, and preserving what future generations must remember. And because the program was educational rather than sensationalized or violent like other reality TV, viewers missed an important fact. This still counted as a performance. Over the years, some hints had appeared, but they were ignored. In a 2014 interview, Rick expressed excitement about purchasing a Victorian-era embalming kit. A former employee remembered Rick having a private section in the pawn shop that displayed objects too strange for television. Death masks, human hair, real teeth. The production team rejected his suggestion to film an episode in a mortuary because it appeared too dark. All of those specifics are now coming back to haunt you as warnings you ignored. This phenomenon has been confirmed as a bias in psychology. When we believe someone is good, we only look for evidence to support that belief. We unintentionally ignore indicators to the contrary. Rick Harrison became a victim, or rather a beneficiary, of the image he had created. True, the media played a significant role in preserving that mask. Rick was a cable television sweetheart. His show avoided controversy, made a lot of money, and aired regularly during prime time. No network wanted to sour their star player. As a result, the media treated rumors about Rick's eccentricity or fascination with death-related objects as odd side stories that no one paid attention to. Rick's audience, accustomed to seeing him on television, saw no reason to question him. He played no role in scandals involving financial fraud, drunk driving, or affairs. On the other hand, he paid school fees for underprivileged children, donated to charities, and received recognition from the city of Las Vegas for his support of regional culture. People felt not only angry, but also betrayed by the stark contrast between his public successes and the hidden truth. Rick Harrison was more than just someone accused of committing terrible crimes. He personified a certain type of success. This adds to the case's unexpectedness. We lost more than just one television personality. We lost faith in the reality we see on screen or in the media. The leaked video, which remains the central focus of the entire story, revealed more than just a horrific act. It demonstrated Rick's lack of guilt or doubt when handling the body. There was no shame, panic, or fear. He did not adopt the posture of someone trying to hide us, because in his universe, he had nothing to report. And perhaps that is the most horrifying aspect of all. Hollywood collections. Nothing more startling was found in Rick Harrison's house than a folder labeled Hollywood Collection. The name suggested an art show or a historical film archive project. Despite being prepared for the worst, the contents completely shocked the investigation team. This folder contained hundreds of photos, detailed descriptions, videos, and personal notes on every piece Rick had kept, restored, and displayed over nearly 2 decades. The most disturbing aspect is that the majority of these exact pieces were once real people, many of whom were well-known, graced stages, appeared on television, or lived in public view. The Hollywood Collection had no haphazard title. It accurately portrayed Rick Harrison's obsession and goal. Celebrity can help you achieve immortality and own beauty that doesn't change over time. Rick used lines like, "She has been saved," no longer under the pressure of fame, and everything is back in its proper place in the notes discovered inside. Understanding his crimes hinged on his bizarre combination of a messiah complex, extreme possessiveness, and distorted sexual psychology. The FBI's investigation revealed Rick had a clear collecting history. Women aged 18 to 35 who work in the entertainment industry, regardless of size. At least 9 of the 17 bodies discovered had careers in modeling, music, or acting, as well as television appearances. Some had even appeared on reality shows competing with pornography stars. These people were not coincidental. They represented faded stardom or forgotten beauty, which Rick saw as an opportunity to be permanently preserved. Within the Hollywood Collection folder, The victims were organized by year of acquisition, preservation status, and aesthetic category. Rick created categories like Golden Era, Pageant Queen, Silent Actress, and Musician Lost. More personal labels, such as Innocent Smiles and Unblinking Eyes, abound. This wasn't just a storage mechanism. It was how Rick transformed everyone into a symbol, erasing their humanity in favor of a role in his macabre scheme. Like an art curator, he arranged his victims based on the emotions they evoked rather than their actual names. One particularly noteworthy item was a printed catalog titled Preservation Series. It featured short biographies presented in the style of an art exhibition, as well as images altered with a vintage look. Every image had a terrifying caption, such as, "She was once the stage's light, now preserved, immortal, under frigid darkness." Alternatively, the evening gown came back into my possession, and I decided to keep it forever. Rick spoke in a cold, refined, hauntingly beautiful tone, reflecting a deeply distorted philosophy in which people were merely tools to achieve his vision of beauty. The methodical nature of the gathering persuaded researchers that Rick's behavior was not at all impulsive. Everything was done meticulously and according to plan. Audio recordings found in the files showed Rick chatting with the deceased as if they were old friends. He whispered their names and said things like, "You don't have to force a smile anymore. These stage lights will not go out, and I'll keep you exactly as you should be." These words indicated that Rick was creating a reality in which the victims became, rather than simply preserving their bodies. This file is more than 30 minutes long. TurboScribe.ai allows you to transcribe files up to 10 hours long using Go Unlimited.